everyone, my name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. I just filmed a video and I realized I used the wrong camera lens the whole time. So the videos this week are gonna look a little bit different from each other, but that's okay because the way I'm handling these subjects is also gonna be very different. Today, we are going to be covering something that I'm honestly really surprised I haven't made a video on already, and that would be pickup play. Yes, we are back again with another BDSM 101 video, and we are going to break down what pickup play is, misconceptions about it, how to do it, how to find it, and if it is right for you. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so what is pickup play? If you are at all interested in playing in the real life community, if you want to find play partners, you're going to want to know what this term is. And pickup play refers to a style of BDSM where there is not any pre-planning, compared to a more typical scene that might involve days, weeks, maybe even months of planning and negotiation ahead of time. Pickup play is done a lot more on the fly. It typically occurs in places like dungeons or play parties where two people meet up and basically just go, hey, do you want to do a flogging tonight? Sure, let's talk about it. And then they decide right then and there that they are going to play that evening. Now, it is sometimes assumed that pickup play is between strangers, between people who haven't played together before, but pickup play actually has more to do with the spontaneity of the play itself rather than any pre-existing relationship or lack thereof between the parties involved. Pickup play is also most commonly associated with things like impact play and rope bondage, but it is definitely not limited to that, and pretty much every kind of kink could be done as a form of pickup play, but whether or not that is a smart idea based on the relative risk of the kind of play that you're doing and the person you're doing it with, it may or may not actually be something that you should do. It's more that you can potentially do almost anything in BDSM as a form of pickup play. You should also be careful not to get pickup play confused with pickup artistry, as some of the articles I read prior to making this video seem to do. Pickup play is a term used within the BDSM community. Pickup artistry is a community, a movement of mostly men that is focused around seduction and sexual conquest. They don't have anything to do with each other, and the terms are not related on purpose in the slightest. Alright, so now that I have explained what pickup play is, you might be thinking to yourself, Evie, that sounds so amazing. I would love to just be able to spontaneously play and do BDSM. How can I do that? And friend, that is where FetLife and real life events come in. If you don't already have a FetLife account, if you don't know what that is, if you don't know how to find parties, I have lots of videos where I've talked about that in detail, so links to those will be down in the description box below. But essentially, you need to get out there and talk to people and go to real life events, because that is how you are going to be able to do things spontaneously. Again, typically this is going to be at some kind of play party or a dungeon. I would recommend going to a general play party night. Usually if it's something that's more themed, like a pet play night or a blood play night, people will have things that are more planned out. But a general BDSM party, at least in the area where I live, a lot more people come to just like have a good time, maybe watch some scenes, and then they might play. They might have some things they're thinking about doing. And I think there is a tendency when you want to do pickup play to go into play parties and say, I need to find somebody to do this with. I need to be able to do pickup play tonight, and just kind of go in there and treat it as a way to find somebody to fulfill a specific role rather than actually enjoy the experience of being at the party. And the reason why I think that's a problem is I think it changes the way that you approach people and actually makes it less likely you're going to be able to find the sorts of people that you want to be around in order to actually have pickup play happen. So please do not go into a play party and go, hi, my name is Steve. Do you want to play with me? Because most people are not going to have a super positive reaction to that, and they're going to be like, okay, but like, who the heck are you? Like, I don't know you at all. What's going on here? Like, yes, pickup play is spontaneous, but you shouldn't generally open a conversation with, hi, do you want to play with me? remember to treat people as their own human beings with their own wants and complicated needs and desires. Rather than approaching this from the I need to play perspective, think about it more like, I'm going to go to this play party, I'm going to see some cool scenes, I'm going to have a fun time, just going to have some conversations, I'm going to meet some people, and then if play happens, that would be a nice bonus. And I think having that mentality will change the energy that you give off, will change how you interact with people, and will make it more likely you have the conversations you need to get to a point where you then can decide whether or not you actually want to play with someone. If you're new to the community, especially if you're a new dom in particular, it might be quite difficult to find anybody who wants to play with you if you have never shown your face in the community before, pick a play or not. And so my recommendation there is that you don't have the play party be the first thing that you ever go to, although it can be nice to sit and watch. But if you want to play, if you want to go more in that direction, the best thing to do is to go to social events first, go to munches, go to something where you can meet people and talk to people outside of a play party environment, so you can kind of give your signal to the community that you're here, you want to be part of their little BDSM community. You're not just some random guy off the street who wants to come in, do his flogging, and then leave without saying goodbye. Because unfortunately, there are people who are like BDSM poachers, kind of, who like just show up for the play parties, find the newest, most inexperienced submissives that they can to play with. They play with them and then leave immediately after, and just people in the community generally don't like those kinds of people, so don't be that person, is my advice, because then no one else is going to want to interact with you because it makes you seem like an asshole. And that leads me to my next segment, which is, how do you know if pick-up play is right for you? Because pick-up play is definitely a very specific style of doing BDSM, and depending on you individually, it may or may not be something that is a good choice. So the first thing is, if you can't treat people like whole people, probably shouldn't be doing pick-up play. If you were treating people as like slot machines where you put in points and then you get BDSM out on the other side, that is not a good mentality for going into BDSM. Also, if you're so desperate that you will play with literally anyone, regardless of what they request or how dangerous they seem, that is not a good sign. That is going to create a dubious consent environment, shall we say, or at least dubious negotiation processes. So make sure that you are approaching people like whole people, that you are not just treating people like little BDSM slot machines, and that you're not just so desperate to play that you'll say yes to anyone. If you like that, I don't think you're probably ready to play in BDSM at all, but pick a play in particular is not really going to work out for you. The second one would be if you are somebody who is likely to have their judgment clouded by a dungeon environment, or you're somebody who is likely to be susceptible to shiny new person syndrome. Dungeons are great environments. I think they are fantastic to play in. I highly recommend them. They give off their own wonderful energy. They can inspire you to think about new forms of play you hadn't considered before, but it is easy to get swept up in that energy, and some people are susceptible to it to the point that they may ask for things or negotiate for things that they wouldn't typically feel comfortable with doing. So you might have a hard limit of no gags of any kind whatsoever, but then in a dungeon environment, when you're seeing everybody else using gags, you're like, oh, actually, that might seem like a good idea. I should try that, because your brain just isn't like thinking super clearly because it's being influenced by all of the outside energy of the dungeon environment. And I think if you are combining playing with your limits with spontaneous play, that's not really like a super safe place to be, especially if you're also adding and doing it with a stranger on top of that. Like, I think exploring limits, having like changes in what we believe we're comfortable with is a process that we all go through in BDSM, where we discover new things about ourselves all the time, but you want to be aware of the environment you're doing that in. Also, you want to be aware of the people you're doing that with. You might be somebody that gets starstruck by like the amazing dom that you just saw did the most amazing flogging ever, and you would do anything to get them to do a flogging like that with you. Or maybe you meet the most perfect submissive ever and you just want to just very gently put your hand over her mouth, maybe control her breathing a little bit. Yeah, be aware of how you interact with new people and how you project fantasies onto people. Because again, it's the whole person thing. But also, if you are somebody who really wants to impress a new person, if you maybe have a long distance crush on somebody, or like just a little bit of puppy love all of a sudden when you start negotiating with somebody that you really want to impress because you want to seem like a tough dom or a tough sub or a real player or whatever, that can impact the things that you negotiate for. And that might mean that you put yourself in a situation you're not entirely comfortable with, and especially reflecting on it later, aren't entirely comfortable with. So if you're somebody who's just like affected by these sorts of situations and you're aware that negotiating in a dungeon environment will impact, your headspace, if you are somebody who really wants to impress new people, if you have a tendency to get starstruck by people you think are really attractive or that you want to impress, just be aware of that. Maybe pickup play isn't the best for you. And also, if you are somebody who is seeking a deeper connection outside of play, pickup play might not be the best choice for you either. I think you can definitely have connection in pickup play. I think that you can enjoy them as entirely separate things, but I think you need to be able to examine the reasons why you're choosing to do pickup play in order to determine whether or not it'll be a good fit for you. Like, are you thinking, I would love to have a 24/7 DS relationship, but also pickup play is fun too? Or are you using it as a way to shoehorn yourself into this person's life and maybe just make a little wedge where hopefully you can be a submissive at some point in the future without communicating any of this intent with your partner? Yeah, I think, at minimum, that just means you're not gonna actually be fulfilled. It's not going to be what you want it to be. And so I think actually doing pickup play might leave you feeling disappointed and having your energy depleted versus actually being able to genuinely have a good time. And lastly, and probably most importantly, is pickup play is probably not going to be for people who are brand new to BDSM. Pickup play requires a refinement of a lot of different skills. It requires you to be able to negotiate not only quickly, but well. And so that generally means you need to be able to have a firm grasp on your limits and boundaries to be able to stick up for those limits. It also means that you need to be able to examine your motivations and your desires in play. It means that you probably also need to be aware of if you go into subspace, if you go into top space, if you do, what conditions provoke that? Do you go through drop? You should probably also have a good understanding of what you need for aftercare. If you drop a couple of days after a scene, any of those things you're probably going to already want to have figured out at least a little bit before you start engaging in pickup play in order to have the best experience possible. And if you're brand new to BDSM, if you've never played before, you probably aren't going to know those things about yourself yet. The exception to this is when you're not really doing a full-on scene, like when it's more like, oh hey, do you want to try my flogger for a second? And then you try somebody's flogger over your clothing for 3 or 4 hits. That's not really a full-on scene. That's not really what pickup play is for. And I think having those little demo or taster moments is a good way to figure out if it's a sensation you like enough to try it again in the future in a full-on scene. So that would be more what I would go towards if you're brand new to BDSM versus trying to find pickup play. Also, big note here is if you're brand new, you don't have access to the same resources for vetting, you don't have the same community ties, you might not know anything about the venue you're playing at, and all those things can affect the safety factor that goes into deciding whether or not this is the right environment for pickup play. And now that I've told you all of the reasons why pickup play might not work, who the heck should actually be doing pickup play? Who are the sorts of people that pickup play would likely work for? For me, and this is my own evaluation because all of this is my opinion, I think that pickup play is more tailored for people who already have experience, who do have an understanding of their limits and boundaries. They're able to stick up for those boundaries. They know what their preferences are. They have experience with negotiation. They are clear communicators. They know what their aftercare needs are. They are probably also even experienced with self-care and self-soothing if their partner isn't available for their typical aftercare that they might need. Also, typically it's going to be somebody that can enjoy pickup play just for what it is without trying to shoehorn in some other kind of relationship or hoping that's going to open the door into something else, because there's no guarantee that that's going to be a possibility. All right, now next I want to talk about some misconceptions with pickup play because, oh man, there are misconceptions about pickup play. There's a whole list to go through, so let's go ahead and get into just the first one, which is pickup play does not mean no negotiations, as some people assume. It just means different negotiations. I kind of gave a little bit of an example earlier, which I don't know if I'm going to leave in the video or not, of like the, hey, do you want to do a flogging? Yeah, sure. That's not the whole negotiation for pickup play. Like, if there are certain situations, which I'll talk about in a minute, maybe, but just because you are doing something spontaneously doesn't mean you don't talk about anything or shouldn't or can't talk about normal negotiation things like safe words, aftercare needs, relevant medical concerns or allergies. That sort of stuff should also still be part of a pickup play negotiation. It doesn't mean a complete free-for-all. Pickup play gets a bad rap for being too risky or too dangerous, and I mean, I did just spend a couple of minutes explaining all the different reasons why pickup play might not be right for you, but I think it's more complicated than that. I think you can compare different BDSM scenarios, and they might actually be more risky than pickup play would be. So let's take a pickup play scenario where you are playing in a public, well-lit dungeon. It is staffed with dungeon monitors. There's a house safe word. There's a time limit on how long you can use the equipment for. And you meet somebody there and you go through a negotiation checklist that the person hosting the event provided. And then you go and you do a pickup play scene. Compare that to a non-pickup play scene that is pre-planned with somebody that you met on the internet, that you've never met in real life before, where they are having you go over to their house. You are playing alone, where you don't set up a safe call. Nobody knows where you are when you should be back. Yeah, just because it's pickup play doesn't necessarily mean it's more dangerous than other BDSM play scenarios. It entirely depends on how you approach it and what the setting and the situation actually is. And related to this is one of the more common complaints when it comes to pickup play, which is that there is not the same ability to vet somebody prior to play. However, I think there are ways you can mitigate the risks of that. One would be playing again in public, going to venues that you trust, going to places where people you know will also be there, asking a friend to watch the scene for you, somebody who maybe has seen you play before, that knows your tells, that can then decide whether or not they should have a DM come in and look at the scene. Those sorts of things can help mitigate some of the risk of not being able to do a full-on vetting procedure, but there is vetting that you can do at play parties. Like if it's a big play party and they've been in the scene, chances are they will either be doing a scene earlier that night that you can watch before you decide to play with them or not, or you can talk to their friends, talk to the people who have played with them there before. Just generally pull people that are around you, that are your friends that you know, and go, hey, Sally, Bob, Steve, what's your name? Have you ever seen so-and-so play before? Have you ever heard of them playing before? Do you have any stories about them? And just kind of do a little bit of like a community check on them, essentially, not necessarily a full-on vetting, but at least enough to get a sense of who they are and generally speaking their style of play. And then obviously when you are negotiating, this is something you should consider as a risk factor when you are deciding what kind of play you are doing. Like, I think one of the big things about pickup play is you have to kind of account for that in your equation. So like maybe with somebody you know that you're planning a scene with, you might decide to do an hour-long 3-part suspension sequence. Whereas with pickup play, with somebody you don't know, maybe it's more appropriate to do some groundwork first and then maybe decide to do more advanced rope bondage at a later date. And that actually reminds me of the next misconception, which is that pickup play has to be with strangers. This is, I think, a lot of the reasons why people have problems with pickup play is like, but it's people you don't know and you don't know about them and you can't vet them. Pickup play, again, like I've already mentioned the definition, has to do more with the spontaneity of the play itself than any relationship with the person you are playing with. I could do pickup play with Mr. Tex. I could do pickup play with one of my friends. And actually, at least in my community, that is how most pickup play is done. It's not two total strangers. It's somebody who knows somebody, or people who have seen each other at a munch, or even lifelong friends who are deciding to play together to do BDSM. You can have a play partner relationship. You can have a DS relationship with somebody. and still decide to do pickup play. So if you're somebody who's nervous about some of the risks associated with pickup play, maybe going more in the direction of doing it with people you already know is a good thing. And so that means that you need to work on cultivating those relationships, really getting to know people, so you can get to that point where that is the way that you are approaching this style of play and this style of negotiation. Also, this is one that I came across in one of the articles I read while researching for this video, and that would be casual doesn't mean not caring. One of the big appeals behind pickup play is that it's casual. It doesn't require a lot of planning. It's something that can, again, just be spontaneous and fun. Though it may be spontaneous, it is still BDSM. It can be intense. It can be psychological. It can be something that really affects a person. And I think that that needs to be something you are considering when you are approaching somebody for play, when you are negotiating, because there are probably still going to be some kind of aftercare needs, regardless of how casual it is. It also could be something where maybe the risks aren't even really physical, having to take care of like somebody's bruised butt or what have you, but more dealing with the mental and the emotional effort that goes into conducting a scene like this. And I think it's important, once again, that we account for that we recognize that, and that we are there for our partners even when they are just pick-up play partners, as much as we would be for somebody that we are doing a pre-planned scene with. All right, now the last one is that pick-up play can be connective. It can be just as connective as other forms of BDSM play. Because of its oftentimes more casual nature, I believe people assume that it is impossible to have a deeper connection in pickup play, and that's simply not true. When we are playing with BDSM, we are playing with very powerful brain chemicals. We are affecting our bodies. We are affecting our mental and emotional states. That can mean that we go through subspace. That can mean we go through sub-drop or top space. All of those things can happen in a pickup play scene. And so I think we need to be aware of that, and that should be something that we negotiate around as well, as opposed to just going, it's just pick-up play, I'll be fine. Because you don't really know, especially if you haven't done pickup play before. You might think, this is just casual, I won't be affected by this. And then suddenly subspace just hits you like a freight train, and you have no plan for handling that, and you haven't told your partner that you even go into subspace, so what the heck are you gonna do? And just set yourself up for success. Do not put yourself in those situations. And I think you just need to be aware that connection is possible in pickup play. And it can be a wonderful thing. It can be a beautiful thing. But the first step to being able to enjoy it is to be aware that it happens. All right, now that this video is approximately like 1,000,000 years long, I am going to go ahead and talk about how do you do the thing? How do you do pickup play? And I'm actually going to leave this section of the video relatively short, because I do have a lot of other videos where I've talked about negotiation, tips and tricks, tons of different styles of how you can approach talking about play with partners. I even have an entire interview I did with Shay and Stefanos where it was all about like how to have a good time negotiating at BDSM play parties. So if you haven't seen those, links to them will be down below so you can check those out. But I think the important thing when it comes to pickup play is that you have something that is concise yet thorough. And I think the way that you can make sure to do that is with a BDSM negotiation checklist or some kind of form. And I will link to some ones that you can use also in the description box below. And I would do something that you can ideally write on or keep track of in some way, so you can go through and you can talk about things and you can keep a record for reference if you need to for some reason. And I think there are some key elements you want to make sure to include in that, because while a lot of BDSM dungeons will provide forms like this during their play parties, not everywhere will, and you might want to make your own form for some reason. And so these are the things that I would consider including. One would be the relative experience level of both parties, how much time you have to play, and what equipment you will be using. Because I think this sets up like the core framework of the play scenario. Like, are you strangers? Have you played together before? Do you have 10 years of experience and this is their first night at a dungeon? Are you both new? Are you both really experienced? Definitely things I think that are important to be honest about, and things that you should definitely have before you decide how you want to proceed with the rest of the play. The next one would be types of play that you're interested in doing. If this is something with a stranger, if it's with a newer person, stick to like 1 or 2 key things, like I want to try flogging, I want to try rope bondage, I want to try handcuffs. Whatever it is, pick a handful of things that you can stick to for a theme, so that way the Dom doesn't have to come up with an entire elaborate scenario all in like 5 minutes. Also, if you're doing more of a role play type of thing, outline what sorts of role play that you are interested in, be that like CGL, pet play, etc. The next step is to talk about how you want to feel during the scene and what kinds of emotions you want to evoke during the scene. Is this going to be a scary scene? A sweet scene? Do you want to feel afraid? Do you want to feel cherished? What do you want to happen during the scene emotionally? How do you want to leave the scene feeling? Now, this is also a good opportunity for you to outline to your partner exactly what those terms mean to you, and if you know, what things would lead to you feeling that way. So, I feel afraid when, or I feel cherished when. Those sorts of statements can be very helpful. You also want to make sure to include any hard limits, any relevant medical information, and definitely also safe words at minimum, clarifying what the house safe word is for the venue you are playing at. And also make sure you talk about, once again, your aftercare needs and your availability for aftercare or communication after a scene. Are you just somebody who's in the area for the evening, and then once you're gone, and you're going to be on your way to somewhere else? You know, maybe you're just visiting for the weekend and you're not going to be available for real life interaction after the weekend. Are you local? Are you willing to meet up? Do you want to talk over FetLife? Do you want to exchange phone information? Because like I mentioned, you can have connection in a pick-up play scenario. You might be totally fine, and all you need after a scene is to be left alone and have a bottle of water. You might be somebody that needs more aftercare. You might want to check in with your partner a day, 2 days after. You might want to call and talk about what you did. And it's important before you decide to go and do the play that you are prepared to deal with what might happen after the scene is done. And I think that can be, in general, a rather neglected area of play. It's like, oh, the play, the fun stuff, let's get to that. I don't know, aftercare, that's fine. I just need water, it's good. Like, talk about aftercare. Ask your partner about their aftercare needs and make sure you are accurately and honestly communicating what those things are. I know sometimes people get nervous about feeling like too needy. Don't. Give your partner the most honest information you can so you can both decide whether or not this is something you mutually want to pursue. Alright, now this is going to be a really long video. Hopefully this made sense. Hopefully you got something out of it. Pick-up play can be a really rewarding area of BDSM. It can be a really fun area of BDSM, and hopefully this video helped you learn more about it and helped you learn more about how you might want to approach doing pick-up play in the future. If you like this video, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. I make videos twice a week about all sorts of kink and alternative relationship style topics. If you really enjoyed this, if you want to support my channel, the best way you can do that is through Patreon. That's what allows me to make these videos. It is also something that allows me to offer you guys extra content like photo shoots, a Discord chat, bonus videos, all sorts of fun stuff. So if you haven't checked that out already, please do. Link to that will be down in the description box below. If you already support me on Patreon, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.